Welcome back to Infidelity Tales Lab. We're incredibly grateful for your support. Before we begin today's tale, tell us, which city or country are you joining us from? We love connecting with our global audience. Now, let's dive into today's story. Brookhaven Manor stood as a testament to 5 generations of Mercer family success. Its imposing stone facade and sprawling gardens represented not just wealth, but legacy, something Don Mercer understood better than most. At 42, Don had expanded the family shipping business into international waters, tripling its value while maintaining the traditions his great-grandfather established. From his study window, Don watched his wife of 15 years, Vanessa, stroll through the garden with his mother Elaine. They made a striking pair, Elaine with her silver hair and timeless elegance, Vanessa with her chestnut waves and calculated charm. The scene should have warmed him, but something had grown cold in his chest months ago. Still admiring the view, Harrison Mercer's voice pulled Don from his thoughts. Don turned to face his father, noting the small leather-bound ledger in his hand. Just thinking about the anniversary gala. 300 guests to impress. Harrison nodded, running a hand through his silver hair. Speaking of impressions, I've been meaning to discuss the family holdings with you. Your mother and I are considering restructuring. A knock interrupted them as Montgomery Caldwell, the family's attorney for 3 decades, entered with a briefcase that seemed permanently attached to his arm. Perfect timing, Monty, Harrison said. We were just discussing the estate planning. Monty's eyes, sharp despite his 70 years, flickered between father and son. The documents are prepared as requested, though I must again express my reservations about. Your reservations are noted, Harrison interrupted, gesturing to the chairs around the mahogany desk. But Elaine and I have made our decision. Don's phone buzzed with a text from Bianca Winters, his chief security officer. Video footage secured. Available when you're ready. Gentlemen, Don said, pocketing his phone, I have a call with our Singapore partners. Perhaps we could continue this discussion at dinner. After they left, Don locked the door and opened his laptop. For 6 months, he'd ignored the signs. Late nights, mysterious calls, sudden business trips. But when a rare family heirloom vanished from Vanessa's jewelry collection, only to reappear 3 days later, his suspicions demanded action. The footage Bianca sent confirmed everything. Vanessa entering the Harbor Point Hotel, embracing Prescott Holloway in the elevator. Prescott, platinum political donor, real estate developer, and Don's supposed friend. Don closed the laptop, his expression unchanged even as he gripped the desk until his knuckles whitened. The Mercer name had survived scandals, market crashes, and 2 world wars. It would survive this too. His phone rang, Laurel Quinn, his assistant. Mr. Mercer, Senator Blackwood has requested an urgent meeting regarding the harbor expansion project. He mentioned that Mr. Holloway has raised some concerns. Don's lips curved into a humorless smile. How convenient. Schedule it for tomorrow, Laurel. That evening, the family gathered in the formal dining room. Crystal glinted in candlelight as Harrison cleared his throat. Vanessa, Harrison began, Elaine and I have always considered you a daughter. Your dedication to our family's philanthropic efforts has been exemplary. Vanessa smiled, her hand finding Don's under the table. He allowed the touch despite everything he now knew. After considerable thought, Harrison continued, we've decided to transfer the majority of our personal holdings, including Brookhaven Manor, directly to you. Don's fork paused halfway to his mouth, and Vanessa's grip tightened on his hand. Father, that's unexpected. Don's voice remained steady, giving away nothing. Elaine dabbed her lips with a napkin. We've seen how you've grown the business, darling. But this home, our personal collections, they need a more delicate touch. Vanessa has shown remarkable taste and judgment. Don studied his mother's face, wondering if she truly believed her words or if there was something else at play. His parents had always valued tradition above all. The Mercer estate passed from father to son for generations. I'm honored, Vanessa whispered, her eyes glistening with tears Don now knew were as false as her wedding vows. Later that night, as Vanessa slept beside him, Don slipped from their bed to his private study. Inside a safe hidden behind an original Hopper painting, He retrieved a thin file containing photographs of his great-grandfather with a young woman no one in the family ever mentioned, documents in his grandfather's handwriting, and a small key. "So they want to give everything to my cheating wife," he murmured. "Let's see how that plays out." Chapter 2. Suspicions. The Harbor Club's private dining room offered both discretion and a commanding view of the waterfront properties that had made Prescott Holloway his millions. Don sat across from Senator Winston Blackwood, a man whose political ambitions were matched only by his appetite for campaign contributions. "Don, I'll be direct," Blackwood said between bites of Wagyu steak. "Prescott's proposal for the Easter Harbor includes significant upgrades to public facilities. Your plan is conservative by comparison." "Conservative," Don repeated. Interesting choice of words for a fiscally responsible development that doesn't require taxpayers to subsidize private luxury condominiums. The senator chuckled. Always the straight shooter. "But the council is leaning toward Holloway's vision. I thought you should hear it from me first." "I appreciate that, Winston. How's Marissa?" "Still chairing the Children's Hospital Board." The sudden change of subject caught Blackwood off guard. "She's well, busy with the annual fundraiser. Wonderful cause. I believe the Mercer Foundation donated $2 million last year." Don sipped his water. "Tell me, does Marissa know about your weekend with Councilwoman Peterson in Cape May?" Blackwood's fork clattered against his plate. "What are you? Just making conversation. Politics, real estate, affairs. It's all connected in our little world, isn't it?" Don's smile never reached his eyes. "The harbor project stays with Mercer Maritime. I'll expect the council's decision by Friday." Across town, Vanessa lunched with Tiffany Westbrook at Soleil, where reservations required both connections and patience. "He knows something," Vanessa confided, glancing around to ensure privacy. "Don's been distant, asking questions about my schedule." Tiffany tucked a strand of platinum blonde hair behind her ear. "Men always sense something's wrong. Doesn't mean they know anything specific. This is different. Harrison and Elaine are transferring everything to me. Not to Don, not to both of us. Just me. And that's bad." Tiffany arched a perfectly shaped eyebrow. "It's unexpected. The Mercers are obsessed with patrilineal succession. For them to bypass their only son." Vanessa toyed with her diamond tennis bracelet, a gift from Prescott, though Don believed it came from her parents. "Something's not right. Or something's very right," Tiffany countered. "Maybe they've recognized your value. God knows you've worked harder than Don to maintain the family's social standing." Vanessa's phone lit up with a text from Prescott. "Need to see you. Urgent." "I have to go," she said, gathering her purse. Tiffany's smile didn't quite conceal her envy. "Give Prescott my regards." At Holloway Development's penthouse office, Prescott paced before floor-to-ceiling windows. "The harbor project is slipping away," he said without greeting Vanessa. "Your husband's pulling strings I didn't even know existed." Vanessa closed the door behind her. "That's what Don does. He builds relationships while you build buildings." "This isn't a joke, Vanessa. I've leveraged everything on this development." "Everything? Including me?" She approached him, running a hand down his silk tie. "Because Harrison and Elaine are signing over their estate to me next week. Once that's done, you still don't understand." Prescott gripped her shoulders. "These old families, they protect their own. There are layers to their wealth that outsiders never see. I'm hardly an outsider. I've been a Mercer for 15 years, and I've competed against them for 20. Trust me, there's always something hidden." That evening, Vanessa searched Don's study while he attended a business dinner. Behind his collection of first-edition novels, she discovered a worn leather journal. Inside, entries dated back 6 months, detailed observations of her movements, names of hotels, meeting times. The final page contained a single sentence: "Confirm Montgomery's loyalty before proceeding." Her hands trembling, Vanessa replaced the journal and called Prescott. "He knows," she whispered. "Don knows everything." Chapter 3. Transfers. Montgomery Caldwell's law office occupied the top floor of a historic building downtown. Despite numerous offers to modernize, Monty preferred his wood-paneled walls lined with law books and client files organized in meticulous filing cabinets. "The transfer documents are prepared," Monty explained to Harrison and Elaine Mercer. One signed, Brookhaven Manor, the art collection, and the investment portfolios, approximately 65% of your personal holdings, will transfer to Vanessa. Don watched his parents sign without interruption, his expression unreadable. Don, you understand our reasoning? Elaine asked, her voice carrying a slight tremor. You believe Vanessa will preserve the family legacy while I focus on the company, Don replied evenly. It's an unusual approach, but I trust your judgment. Monty slid the documents toward Vanessa, who signed with practiced confidence. Congratulations, Mrs. Mercer. You are now the primary holder of one of the country's most significant private estates. Thank you, Monty. Vanessa turned to her in-laws. I promise to honor the Mercer tradition. As they prepared to leave, Don lingered. A moment, Monty. Once alone, Don closed the office door. Did my father ask about the auxiliary trust? Monty's expression remained professionally neutral. He did not. And did you remind him of its existence? It wasn't my place to volunteer information that wasn't requested. Monty removed his glasses. Don, what exactly are you planning? Planning? I'm simply ensuring all our legal affairs are in order. Don straightened his tie. The anniversary gala is next Saturday. I'll need those other documents we discussed delivered to my private office at the manor by Friday. That evening, Vanessa hosted the Garden Club's monthly meeting at Brookhaven Manor, strategically flaunting her new status as the estate's owner. Among the attendees was Clara Nichols, the mayor's wife and Prescott's ex-sister-in-law. Vanessa, darling, the East Wing renovations are divine, Clara gushed. Though I'm surprised Harrison and Elaine relinquished control. They've always been so traditional. Times change, Vanessa replied with practiced modesty. They recognized that preservation requires a forward-thinking approach. Speaking of forward-thinking, Clara lowered her voice. There are rumors about you and Prescott Holloway. Vanessa's smile froze. Prescott is a family friend and business associate. Of course, Clara nodded knowingly. Just like he was a business associate to my sister before their divorce. After the guests departed, Vanessa found Don in his study, reviewing documents. Successful evening? He asked without looking up. Very. Clara Nichols was particularly interested in our renovation plans. Vanessa poured herself a glass of wine. By the way, I invited Prescott to the anniversary gala. He's been instrumental in connecting us with new donors for the foundation. Don's pen paused momentarily. How thoughtful of you. You don't mind, do you? I know you two have that harbor competition, but surely you can be civil for one evening. Civil is my specialty. Don finally looked up, his eyes meeting hers, especially with those who believe they've bested me. The week before the gala, a package arrived for Don, an antique pocket watch from a Swiss auction house. Inside was an inscription, Time reveals all truths. H.M. 1932. Don recognized his great-grandfather's initials and the year of the mysterious photographs in his secret file. The final piece had fallen into place. At his office downtown, Don met with Bianca Winters, whose security expertise extended well beyond corporate matters. Everything's prepared as requested, Bianca reported. The documents will be in your private safe by tomorrow morning, and the security team for the gala has been briefed on the special protocol. And our contingency plan? In place. Though I should warn you, once this starts, there's no stopping it. Don smiled, the first genuine smile in months. That's precisely the point. Chapter 4. Celebrations. The Mercer family's anniversary gala transformed Brookhaven Manor into a showcase of calculated opulence. 300 guests in formal attire wandered gardens illuminated by thousands of tiny lights, while chamber music drifted from the terrace. Inside, museum-quality art competed with floral arrangements that had consumed the efforts of 6 florists. Don stood beside Vanessa at the grand entrance, greeting arrivals with the practiced harmony of a couple who had perfected their public performance. You've outdone yourself, Don murmured between handshakes. Mother is impressed. Vanessa beamed, radiant in a custom gown the exact shade of the Mercer family crest. Wait until they see the midnight surprise. Senator Blackwood approached with his wife Marissa. Don, Vanessa, spectacular as always. Senator, so good of you to come. I believe the Harbor Commission votes next week. Don's handshake lingered just long enough to convey his message. We should discuss the revised proposals before then. Yes, well, Blackwood cleared his throat. I hear there have been some interesting developments. Haven't there just, Don agreed pleasantly. As the evening progressed, Don observed Vanessa and Prescott maintaining careful distance, their interactions limited to brief conversations in public spaces. Amateur performers, he thought, watching Prescott check his watch for the third time in an hour. Harrison called for attention as midnight approached. Friends, family, esteemed guests, today marks not just our 45th wedding anniversary, but a new chapter for the Mercer legacy. Elaine took her husband's hand. Many of you know that we recently transferred stewardship of our family estate to our beloved daughter-in-law, Vanessa. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as Vanessa stepped forward, the picture of grateful humility. It's with tremendous responsibility that I accept this honor, she said. The Mercer family has built something extraordinary over generations, and I pledge to preserve. If I might interject, Don said, his voice cutting through his wife's speech as he moved to center stage. There's an important element missing from tonight's celebration. He gestured to Montgomery Caldwell, who approached with a leather portfolio. While my parents have indeed transferred their personal holdings to my wife, they seem to have forgotten about another significant portion of the Mercer estate. Harrison frowned. What are you talking about, son? Parents transferred our family estate to my cheating wife, Don announced, his voice carrying throughout the silent room. They forgot to check the hidden trust. The horrified expressions around him might have been comical under different circumstances. Don continued, his tone conversational despite his damning words. You see, my great-grandfather Harold Mercer established a separate trust in 1932. Unlike the main family holdings, this trust, containing roughly 40% of our total assets, including controlling interest in Mercer Maritime, passes directly to the eldest male heir, unless that heir designates an alternate successor. Monty stepped forward, opening the portfolio. The Harold Mercer Preservation Trust has remained largely untouched for 3 generations, accumulating significant value. As trustee, I can confirm that Donovan is the current beneficiary and has full discretionary control. Vanessa's perfect composure cracked. Don, what is this about? Why wouldn't you tell me about this trust? An excellent question. Don turned to face her directly. Perhaps for the same reason you didn't tell me about your affair with Prescott Holloway. The collective gasp from the guests was audible. Prescott stepped forward, his handsome face flushed with anger. This is outrageous and inappropriate. Mercer. They thought everything was hers. Don continued, ignoring Prescott, until the lawyer revealed the overlooked documents. He gestured to Monty, who produced a second file containing photographs, hotel receipts, and transcripts of text messages. My wife's smile vanished. My parents were stunned, Don narrated as Vanessa's expression shifted from shock to fury, and his parents stared in disbelief. And then the real heir was revealed. From the edge of the crowd, a young woman stepped forward. With chestnut hair and gray eyes identical to Don's, she moved with quiet confidence through the whispering guests. Allow me to introduce Sophia Mercer, Don said. My daughter, 22 years old, graduate of Stanford University, and as of last week, the designated successor to the Harold Mercer Preservation Trust. Harrison gripped the back of a chair for support. A granddaughter? How is this possible? A relationship before I met Vanessa, Don explained. Sophia's mother, Renata, respected my family's expectations and raised our daughter privately, with my support. Sophia has known her heritage her entire life, preparing for the responsibility it entails. Vanessa's fury found her voice. You've had a secret daughter for our entire marriage? And you accuse me of betrayal. The difference, Don replied coldly, is that I never betrayed Sophia's existence to hurt you. You cannot say the same about your relationship with Prescott. As security discreetly moved toward Prescott, Don addressed the stunned crowd. Please enjoy the remainder of the evening. The Mercer family, the true Mercer family, Thanks you for your continued friendship and support. Chapter 5. Retaliation. The morning after the gala, Brookhaven Manor resembled a fortress under siege. Reporters camped at the gates, while inside, the family fractured along new fault lines. Harrison and Elaine sequestered themselves in their private wing. Vanessa locked herself in the East guest suite, and Don worked calmly from his study as though the previous night had been nothing more than a minor social hiccup. Sophia knocked gently on his door. "The lawyers are here." Don looked up at his daughter. The secret he'd protected since before his marriage, the contingency plan he'd always maintained without fully understanding why. "Until now. Are you ready for this?" he asked. Sophia settled into the chair opposite his desk, her posture mirroring his. "I've been ready my entire life, Dad. Mom made sure of that." The door opened again as Laurel escorted in 3 attorneys. Monty, Vanessa's newly retained counsel Theodore Zimmerman, and Renata's longtime lawyer Diane Frost. "This is highly irregular," Zimmerman began. "My client demands an immediate. Your client is entitled to what my father and the trust documents specify. Nothing more, nothing less," Dawn interrupted. "She now owns the properties transferred to her. The trust assets remain separate." "Separate, but not insignificant," Diane observed. "The Harold Mercer Trust holdings include the company headquarters, the majority of intellectual property rights, and controlling interest in Mercer Maritime's voting shares." Monty cleared his throat. "I've prepared a full accounting for everyone's review. While Mrs. Mercer now possesses substantial assets, operational control of the business enterprise remains with Donovan and, by his designation, Sophia." "This is deliberate humiliation," Zimmerman argued. "My client entered her marriage in good faith." "Your client violated that faith repeatedly," Dawn countered. "However, I'm not contesting the transfers my parents made. Vanessa keeps Brookhaven Manor and the other assets." "And what about Prescott Holloway's involvement?" Diane asked. Dawn's expression hardened. "Mr. Holloway's companies have been removed from consideration for all current and future Mercer Maritime partnerships. Additionally, several board members of companies he works with have received comprehensive documentation of his ethical shortcomings." Later that day, Sophia found her grandparents in the conservatory, surrounded by orchids Harrison had cultivated for decades. "You look so much like him," Elaine said quietly. The same determined expression. "Why didn't Don tell us about you?" "He wanted to," Sophia replied, "but my mother insisted I be raised away from public scrutiny. She believed wealth without purpose creates entitlement." Harrison studied her. "Your mother sounds wise. Unlike us, perhaps. We thought we were securing the family legacy by transferring everything to Vanessa." "Why?" Sophia asked bluntly. "It contradicts everything the Mercer family stands for." Harrison and Elaine exchanged glances loaded with unspoken communication. "Vanessa came to us 6 months ago," Harrison finally explained. "She presented evidence suggesting Don was engaged in unethical business practices. Fabricated, we now realize. She convinced us that Don was under federal investigation and that any assets in his name might be seized." "You believe her over your own son?" Sophia couldn't hide her disbelief. "We believed we were protecting the family," Elaine whispered. "We thought transferring everything to Vanessa would shield our legacy from Don's supposed misdeeds." Across town, Vanessa stormed into Prescott's office. "This is your fault. You promised me Don would never discover us." Prescott, haggard from a night of emergency meetings, glared at her. "My company's stock dropped 12% this morning. 3 board members have resigned. Your marital problems are the least of my concerns." "Marital problems?" Vanessa laughed bitterly. "Don just revealed a secret daughter and transferred everything of value to her. I'm left with empty houses and artwork I can't sell because of heritage restrictions." "At least you have that," Prescott snapped. "I'm fighting for my company's survival." "We need to strike back," Vanessa insisted. "Don thinks he's won, but he's vulnerable. His precious daughter has no experience with public scrutiny, and I still have leverage with his parents." Prescott studied her with new wariness. "What exactly are you proposing?" "A counter-narrative. I've been collecting information for years, conversations with Harrison and Elaine, Business meetings Don thought were private. With the right spin, we can make him look controlling, manipulative. And Sophia? You drag an innocent young woman into this mess. Innocent, Vanessa scoffed. She's been preparing to take everything from me her entire life. She deserves whatever comes her way. That evening, Don met with Bianca Winters at Mercer Maritime's secure data center. Prescott's been busy, Bianca reported. His team filed emergency injunctions against our withdrawal from 3 joint ventures. He's also launched a PR campaign suggesting we violated contract terms. As expected, Don nodded. And the other matter? Vanessa accessed your private server last night after the gala. She downloaded files related to the Singapore expansion and your meetings with Japanese investors. Perfect. Don checked his watch. Has she contacted Whitney Powell yet? Bianca nodded. 20 minutes ago. They're meeting tomorrow at the Vermilion. Make sure Powell receives the enhanced package before then. Don scrolled through security feeds on a nearby monitor. Where's Sophia now? At her mother's place. Renata's security detail reports no unusual activity. Don allowed himself a moment of genuine emotion. I've dragged them both into this mess. With respect, sir, Bianca replied, they've both been prepared for this scenario for years. Sophia more than held her own with the attorneys today. She's a Mercer, Don said simply. Now, let's proceed with Phase 2. Chapter 6, Escalation. The Vermilion Restaurant's private dining room offered both exclusivity and discretion. Qualities Vanessa required for her meeting with Whitney Powell, executive editor of the Metropolitan Chronicle. Everything I've told you is documented, Vanessa insisted, sliding a flash drive across the table. Don Mercer has maintained a double life for decades. His devoted family man persona masks a calculation and ruthlessness that even his business competitors don't fully comprehend. Powell, a veteran journalist whose elegant appearance belied her investigative tenacity, examined the drive without touching it. These are serious allegations, Mrs. Mercer. Corporate espionage, offshore accounts, manipulating federal contracts, not to mention hiding a child from her rightful grandparents. Don compartmentalizes his life with surgical precision. Vanessa paused as her phone chimed with a news alert. Holloway Development faces federal scrutiny over harbor project financing. What now? Powell glanced at her own phone. Apparently, financial irregularities have been discovered in Prescott Holloway's harbor development proposal. Anonymous whistleblowers provided documentation showing inflated cost projections and kickback arrangements with subcontractors. Vanessa's face drained of color as she read the full article. This is Don's doing. He's systematically destroying everyone connected to me. Perhaps, Powell leaned forward, but it raises a question. If your husband can orchestrate this level of retaliation against Holloway within days, what else might he be capable of? And more importantly, why should I risk publishing your allegations without independently verifying them? Because they're true, Vanessa insisted. Check the documentation yourself. I intend to, Powell replied, finally taking the flash drive. But understand this. If I discover you're using my publication as a weapon in your marital warfare, I'll expose that manipulation instead. Across town, Sophia met with Senator Blackwood at his request. The upscale cafe near the Capitol building provided enough ambient noise to ensure their conversation remained private. I've known your father for nearly 2 decades, Blackwood began, yet he never once mentioned your existence. A necessary protection, Sophia replied, stirring her untouched tea, one I agreed with until recently. And now, how does it feel to be suddenly thrust into the public eye as heir to one of the country's largest private fortunes? Sophia studied the senator carefully. You didn't invite me here to discuss my feelings, Senator. What is it you really want to know? Blackwood chuckled. Direct, like your father. Very well. The harbor development project is in limbo with Holloway's company under investigation. The commission needs reassurance that Mercer Maritime remains committed to the original proposal. With enhanced environmental protections and without the luxury condominiums, Sophia clarified. Yes, we remain committed. Dad has already instructed our team to prepare an updated presentation. Excellent. And the personal situation with your father's marriage has no bearing on business operations, Sophia finished firmly. Though I understand your concern, given your close relationship with both my father and Mr. Holloway. Blackwood's smile tightened. I maintain professional relationships with many business leaders. Of course, just as you maintain a professional relationship with Councilwoman Peterson, despite your weekend trips to Cape May. Sophia's expression remained pleasant. Dad mentioned you might raise personal matters. He suggested I remind you that Mercer Maritime values discretion in all relationships, business and otherwise. The senator's face flushed. I see Don has taught you well. Actually, that lesson came from my mother, Sophia corrected him. She always said that information is only valuable when strategically deployed. That evening, Harrison called an emergency family meeting in Brookhaven Manor's library. Don arrived first, followed by Sophia, then Vanessa, who had clearly been drinking. This has gone far enough, Harrison declared once they were all seated. Our family is being torn apart and dragged through the tabloids. Interesting concerns, coming from people who tried to disinherit me, Don observed coolly. We were misled, Elaine protested. Vanessa convinced us. Oh, blame me entirely, Vanessa interrupted bitterly. Never mind that Don kept his precious daughter's secret for decades. Never mind that he's been systematically destroying Prescott's business. The way you attempted to destroy mine? Don countered. The false evidence you manufactured for my parents? The confidential files you've been sharing with competitors? Enough. Harrison's voice silenced the room. This ends now. Vanessa, you'll retain ownership of Brookhaven Manor and the other properties, but you'll vacate the premises immediately. Don, you'll cease your campaign against Holloway Development. With respect, grandfather, Sophia spoke for the first time. Prescott Holloway's financial improprieties were discovered through standard due diligence when we re-evaluated the harbor project partners. Dad didn't create those problems. He merely ensured they weren't concealed. Convenient timing, Vanessa sneered. No, Sophia replied evenly. Strategic timing. There's a difference. The point remains, Harrison insisted. This public spectacle must end. Don leaned back in his chair. I agree. That's why I've prepared a comprehensive settlement offer. He nodded to Monty, who distributed folders to everyone present. Vanessa retains all assets transferred to her. In exchange, she signs a non-disclosure agreement covering both our marriage and all Mercer business operations. You expect me to stay silent while you rewrite our entire history. Vanessa's laugh held no humor. I've already spoken to Whitney Powell. By tomorrow, everyone will know exactly what kind of man you really are. Don's expression didn't change. Page 4, Section 3 details the consequences of violating the NDA. Among them, forfeiture of Brookhaven Manor to the Harold Mercer Trust. You can't do that, Vanessa protested. Harrison and Elaine already transferred ownership to me. They transferred what they believed was full ownership, Don corrected. However, the original deed contains a reversion clause that activates if the property is used in a manner detrimental to the Mercer family name and standing. I believe a tabloid expose qualifies. As Vanessa absorbed this information, Don continued. Additionally, Monty discovered that the transfers themselves may be invalid. It seems the property surveys used in the documentation omitted certain historical easements, rendering the transfer incomplete. Vanessa turned to her in-laws. Did you know about this? Harrison and Elaine's stunned expressions answered her question. You have until midnight to decide, Don said, rising from his chair. Sign the NDA and keep your ill-gotten gains, or proceed with your vendetta and lose everything. After Don left, Vanessa rounded on Sophia. This was your idea, wasn't it? The perfect Mercer daughter orchestrating my downfall. No, Vanessa, Sophia replied calmly. You orchestrated your own downfall the moment you decided to betray my father. I'm simply helping him minimize the damage to our family. You're not family, Vanessa hissed. You're an outsider who appeared at the convenient moment to claim what should have been mine. What should have been yours? Sophia's composure finally cracked. You married into this family. I was born into it. Every sacrifice I made, growing up without grandparents, watching my mother refuse relationships that might complicate our lives, maintaining a low profile through college and graduate school, was to protect the Mercer name while you were busy exploiting it. As Sophia stormed out, Harrison turned to Vanessa. Sign the agreement. Take what you have and disappear from our lives. You'd choose them over me? After 15 years. Vanessa's voice trembled with genuine hurt beneath her anger. We chose you over our son once, Elaine said quietly. We won't make that mistake again. Later that night, as Don worked in his downtown apartment, his secure phone rang with Bianca's code. Sir, we have a situation. Vanessa never returned to the hotel. Her security detail lost her near the warehouse district 2 hours ago. Don was instantly alert. What about Prescott? Also off-grid. His regular phone is at his penthouse, but our sources confirm he's not there. Alert Sophia's security team immediately. Then contact. A text interrupted him. You think you've won everything. Meet me at the old shipping warehouse. Come alone or Sophia learns exactly what kind of father you really are. Chapter 7, Discoveries. The abandoned Mercer Maritime warehouse stood as a relic of the company's early days, a cavernous space of rusted metal and crumbling concrete that Don had refused to demolish despite numerous development opportunities. As he approached through the midnight fog, he noted the single vehicle parked outside, Prescott's Range Rover. Inside, emergency lights cast eerie shadows across empty loading bays. Don moved cautiously, aware that he was walking into a trap, but confident in the precautions he'd taken before arriving. I was beginning to think you wouldn't come, Vanessa's voice echoed from the darkness. She stepped into view, her designer outfit incongruous against the industrial decay. You threatened my daughter, Don replied simply. Of course I came. Your precious daughter. Vanessa circled him slowly. The heir you kept hidden all these years while letting me believe we might someday have children of our own. We both know you never wanted children, Vanessa. That was just another lie in your extensive repertoire. Maybe, she conceded. Or maybe I just knew they'd never measure up to your secret progeny. From the shadows, Prescott emerged, looking considerably worse than when Don had last seen him. Your wife has quite a talent for deception, Mercer. She convinced me you were the villain in this story. And now? Don asked, noting the tension between them. Now I understand I was just another pawn in her game. Prescott's laugh was bitter. She's been planning to take control of Mercer Maritime for years. I was just her battering ram against her defenses. Vanessa shot Prescott a venomous look. Don't pretend you weren't well compensated for your role, darling. Your harbor project would have made you millions if you hadn't bumbled the financials so badly the feds noticed. Enough theatrics, Don interrupted. What do you want, Vanessa? She produced a small metal box, an antique safe deposit key inside. When I was searching your study, I found more than just your surveillance journal. I found references to a deposit box at First National, established by your great-grandfather. Don's expression betrayed nothing, though his pulse quickened. And I visited the bank this morning. The manager was quite helpful when I explained I was inventorying Mercer family assets as the new estate owner. Vanessa smiled triumphantly. Inside, I found something fascinating, a second trust document dated after the one Monty presented at the gala. Impossible, Don said, though uncertainty tinged his voice. The Harold Mercer Trust is the final version. Is it? Because this version includes a critical amendment. In the event the primary male heir conceals or misrepresents his lineage to the family, control reverts to the current patriarch spouse. Vanessa's smile widened. That would be your mother, who transferred everything to me. Prescott looked between them. If this is true, the trust assets could still be yours, Vanessa. Which is why you're both here, Don concluded. You need the original document to challenge my control of the trust. Precisely, Vanessa nodded. And you're going to tell us where it is, or this recording of our conversation goes directly to Sophia. She held up her phone, along with some other interesting recordings I've made over the years. Conversations that reveal exactly how ruthless her father can be. Don studied his wife with something approaching respect. You've thought this through, 15 years as a Mercer taught me something about strategic planning. Indeed, Don checked his watch. Unfortunately, you've overlooked several critical details. First, the Harold Mercer Trust documents aren't stored in any bank vault. They're in the family archives beneath Brookhaven Manor. Second, you no longer have access to those archives since your security credentials were revoked this morning. Vanessa's confidence wavered. You're bluffing. Third, Dawn continued as if she hadn't spoken. You're currently trespassing on Mercer Maritime property, having entered under false pretenses with intent to commit extortion, all of which has been recorded by the security system I reactivated last week. On cue, the warehouse lights blazed to full power, revealing Bianca Winters and 2 security officers at each exit. Finally, Dawn said, your amended trust document is a forgery. Harold Mercer never amended the trust. I know because I've spent 20 years searching for any possible loophole or revision. Vanessa's composure cracked completely. You can't prove that. Actually, he can. A new voice announced as Montgomery Caldwell entered with a leather portfolio. As trustee, I maintain the complete provenance of all Mercer family legal documents. The trust you're referring to has only been amended once, when Donovan designated Sophia as a successor. Prescott grabbed Vanessa's arm. You said this was foolproof, that you had legitimate leverage. I believe that constitutes conspiracy, Bianca noted, approaching with handcuffs, along with corporate espionage, extortion, and about a dozen other charges my legal team is eager to pursue. You wouldn't dare, Vanessa hissed at Dawn. The scandal would damage your precious family name. Not necessarily, Dawn replied. A tragic case of a trusted wife betraying her family for financial gain? The public loves that narrative, especially when the wronged husband reclaims his family legacy and reconciles with his long-separated daughter. As Bianca led them away, Dawn turned to Monty. Have the divorce papers been filed? This morning, along with restraining orders against both Mrs. Mercer and Mr. Holloway. Dawn nodded. Tomorrow, we invalidate the property transfers based on the fraudulent surveys. By week's end, everything should be restored to its proper ownership. And Sophia? Is she prepared for what comes next? Dawn's expression softened slightly. She's been preparing her entire life. Now it's time for her to take her rightful place in the family. Chapter 8, Revelations. 3 days later, Mercer Maritime's executive boardroom hosted an unexpected family gathering. Harrison and Elaine sat stiffly at one end of the polished table, while Dawn and Sophia occupied the other. Between them, spread across the gleaming surface, lay the contents of Harold Mercer's personal archives, photographs, letters, and journals spanning nearly a century. I still don't understand, Harrison said, examining a photograph of his father with an unfamiliar woman. Why would all of this be hidden from us? Not hidden, Dawn corrected. Protected. Great-grandfather Harold created the separate trust to preserve the family's core assets against any potential threat, including internal ones. He didn't trust his own son? Elaine asked, shocked. Sophia carefully opened a leather journal. According to his writings, he was concerned about his son's judgment. Your father, grandfather. Apparently, he had a pattern of trusting the wrong people. Harrison's expression darkened. That sounds familiar. The pattern repeats, Dawn acknowledged. My surveillance of Vanessa began after I discovered discrepancies in the foundation accounts. She had been siphoning funds for years, disguising the transactions as charitable contributions that were actually diverted to shell companies controlled by Prescott. We were blind to it all, Elaine whispered. She showed us fabricated evidence of your supposed misdeeds, and we believed her without question. She was very convincing, Dawn said without rancor. Even I was deceived for years. But not about everything, Harrison challenged. You kept Sophia's secret from us. Dawn exchanged glances with his daughter. That decision wasn't entirely mine. Renata insisted on it after watching how wealth and position shaped her own family. She wanted Sophia to develop her own identity before facing the expectations that come with the Mercer name. My mother grew up in a similar world, Sophia explained. Her family lost everything in a series of bad investments and social scandals. She was determined I would understand both privilege and its absence. So you lived a double life, Elaine said to Don. Successful businessman and family man here, secret father elsewhere. I never abandoned my responsibilities to either role, Don replied firmly. Sophia received everything she needed, financial support, education, and my presence as often as possible without risking exposure. Which explains your frequent business trips to Chicago, Harrison realized. We assumed they were for the company's expansion. Many were, Don acknowledged. I coordinated legitimate business in Chicago to coincide with my visits to Sophia and Renata. The boardroom door opened as Monty entered with a tablet. The judge has granted our emergency petition. All property transfers to Vanessa have been invalidated pending full investigation of the fraudulent documentation. In Brookhaven Manor, Elaine asked anxiously. Return to your ownership effective immediately, Monty confirmed. The security team has already begun changing the locks and security codes. Harrison studied Don with new understanding. You planned this entire scenario, didn't you? You knew about Vanessa and Prescott long before the gala. I had my suspicions for months, Don admitted. But concrete proof came only recently. The gala provided the perfect opportunity to address everything at once. By humiliating your wife publicly, Elaine's tone held disapproval. By revealing the truth before Vanessa and Prescott could complete their plan, Don corrected. They intended to gain control of both the family estate and the company, then force me out completely. The fraudulent trust document Vanessa claimed to have found would have been discovered after she had secured her position. And now, Harrison asked, what happens to them? Prescott faces federal charges for the Harbor Project irregularities, Monty reported. His company's board has already removed him as CEO. Vanessa has been offered a settlement, financial support in exchange for her silence and complete separation from the Mercer name. She won't accept it, Elaine predicted. She's too proud, too angry. Perhaps, Don acknowledged. But her alternatives are worse. Whitney Powell has enough evidence of Vanessa's manipulations to destroy what remains of her social standing. As the meeting concluded, Sophia lingered with her grandparents while Don stepped out to take a call. Harrison studied his newly discovered granddaughter with a mixture of regret and wonder. 22 years, he murmured. We missed everything. Your first steps, school graduations, holidays. We can't recover that time, Sophia said gently, but we have the future. If you're willing. Elaine reached for her hand. More than willing. Desperate, actually. You're our only grandchild, our family's future. About that, Sophia hesitated. There's something else you should know. Chapter 9, Resolutions. 1 month later, Brookhaven Manor hosted a much smaller, more intimate gathering. The formal dining room, usually reserved for significant occasions, had been transformed with flowers and candles. At the head of the table sat Harrison and Elaine, with Don to their right. Beside him was Renata Davis, Sophia's mother, elegant and composed despite the extraordinary circumstances. The renovations are lovely, Renata commented, gesturing to the newly redesigned East Wing. Though I admit, I never imagined I'd be a guest here. You've always been welcome, Don assured her. The timing simply wasn't right before now. Speaking of timing, Harrison interjected, the board was impressed with Sophia's presentation yesterday. They've unanimously approved her appointment to the executive committee. As expected, Don nodded. She's been studying our operations since she could read financial statements. A unique childhood activity, Elaine observed with a smile. Renata laughed softly. Between Don's business lessons and my insistence on normal experiences like public school and summer jobs, Sophia had quite the balanced upbringing. The conversation paused as Monty entered with Sophia, both looking pleased. It's official, Monty announced. The judge has dismissed Vanessa's countersuit entirely. The divorce proceeds on our terms, and all company assets remain under Mercer family control. And Prescott, Don asked, accepted a plea deal, Sophia reported. Limited jail time in exchange for testimony against his financial partners. His company will survive, barely, though he's permanently removed from leadership. And Vanessa? Elaine inquired cautiously. Sophia and Monty exchanged glances. She's leaving the country, Monty said. The settlement provides for her basic needs, but her reputation here is beyond repair. Whitney Powell's expose on her manipulation of the Mercer family was comprehensive. A fitting conclusion, Harrison declared. Now, shall we move on to more pleasant matters? I believe there's an announcement. Don stood, glancing first at Renata, who nodded encouragement, then at Sophia, who smiled knowingly. Yes, there is, Don confirmed. After considerable discussion, Renata and I have decided to formalize our relationship. We were married in a private ceremony last weekend. Elaine gasped. But you've been apart for over 20 years. Separated, but never truly apart, Renata clarified. Don and I maintained contact throughout Sophia's upbringing. The connection between us never fully disappeared. We simply prioritized Sophia's development over our personal wishes, Don added. Now that she's established in her own right, we're free to pursue what we've both wanted for decades. Which brings us to our second announcement, Renata continued. Sophia, would you like to tell them? Sophia's smile brightened the room. I'm pregnant, due in early spring. The stunned silence broke into exclamations of joy as Harrison and Elaine absorbed the news that they would not only gain a daughter-in-law, but a great-grandchild as well. So the true heir was revealed indeed, Harrison said, raising his glass. To the future of the Mercer family, stronger and more united than ever. Later that evening, Don found Sophia in the library, examining the portrait of Harold Mercer that hung above the fireplace. He looks pleased, Sophia observed, as though he knew exactly how his hidden trust would eventually save the family. He was always 3 steps ahead, Don agreed. A trait you've inherited, along with your talent for long-term planning, Sophia teased. 20 years maintaining a relationship with Mom while waiting for the right moment to bring everything together? That's dedication even Harold would admire. Don's expression grew serious. I never planned for Vanessa's betrayal. That was a painful surprise. But you were prepared for it, Sophia pointed out. The surveillance, the separate accounts, maintaining the hidden trust. You were always protecting us, even before you knew we needed protection. Family is worth protecting, Don said simply. Speaking of which, Sophia rested a hand on her still flat stomach. Have you told Mom about the nursery renovations yet? Don smiled, a genuine, unguarded expression rarely seen during the years of his marriage to Vanessa. Some surprises are worth keeping, even from those we trust completely. From the doorway, Renata watched them with quiet satisfaction. The Mercer legacy had survived betrayal, deception, and near disaster. Now, it would continue, stronger than before, into generations yet to come. In his downtown office, the final divorce papers signed and filed, Monty Caldwell opened the original Harold Mercer Trust document one last time. His finger traced the final clause that Don had never revealed to anyone, not even to Sophia. The trust's ultimate purpose is not merely to preserve wealth, but to ensure the family remains united by bonds stronger than money. When such unity is achieved, the trust shall have fulfilled its purpose. And there you have it.